What does photography mean to you? In a nutshell, what are you personally getting out of photography?
But I think it's different, there is always that slight sense of guilt in the sense that, like Dion Arbus said, which she felt guilty that when she was, courting, if that's the right word, the dwarfs or the giants or the slightly odd people, that she felt she was abusing them because she was being friendly, but the friendliness was to take pictures and to capture something which she knew would be a great image. And arguably it was a con because she wasn't really their friend, she wasn't really going to engage with spending the rest of her life with them. And I think that there is that slight ambiguity to engage with somebody sometimes. Perhaps it does make you feel slightly that you adopting like a chameleon a certain personality or situation to elicit a response from somebody else. But actually in the professional field, i.e. if you're dealing with people who are photographed a lot, celebrities, actors and actresses, they know that's part of the pact. That is it. And whatever, and you work towards that, and it doesn't need to be said. I think if you're doing real people, other situations, you can put you in a slightly more compromising state of mind about whether you have a sense of guilt. But I think that it's about capturing the moment for something. What importance is, or relevance, I don't know. But it's tragedy. I was thinking, so often you see the auctions and you go to auction houses, and you'll see family albums there of pictures of intimate pictures of the entire history of a family and children growing up and parents dying and grandparents dying and people coming and going into people's lives, and they're just there for £5 or something. All that texture and rich tapestry of that family's history, and that's sort of tragic.
That's fine. Regarding your work with Leigh Bowery, in one of your previous interviews, you said that you and Leigh were total opposites. So why were you interested to work with such an extreme opposite to yourself? What were the main aspects that attract you to work with Leigh Bowery?
But I met Leigh, I was introduced by a couple of friends to Leigh. He was giving a set of performances at the Anthony Doffe Gallery during a gap in the exhibit schedule. And the friend of mine who was a dealer there said to me, "Fergus, you should come meet my friend Leigh, because I think you two would get on really well. And I think you should do some work together, you should do some pictures. Leigh, my friend, I think you get on really well, and you should do some work together, you should do some pictures." And so I went along and I was somewhat surprised, but hugely excited at this phenomena who was performing, but slightly intimidated because in his outfit he was about 7 foot tall. He had a massive entourage of following of the art hit people of the time. And I said, "Well, I'm not so sure actually that," and Norm said, "No, you'll be fine, come meet Leigh, you're going to get on really well." So I went up and Leigh looked down at his costume and said, "Hello, Lorcan says he thinks we should do some pictures together." And I went, "Indeed, yes." He said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I think that would be great." He said, "Well, let's do some pictures then." And so we started, and he was hugely inspiring because he was very many things I wasn't. So and I think actually in reflection that I was many things he wasn't. And so we had a natural interest in that other part of being of something that you're not, as a natural curiosity, and in the human condition again. So that sort of was fascinating for me, in addition to which clearly visually it was extraordinary what he was creating. And on film it was naturally interesting. So I didn't do anything dramatic, I photographed him in a classical fashion, which is what I'd argue at that point been trained up to by Terence Donovan and Richard Avedon. So that's how I shot him. So it was a learning curve in my photography and the technique, my technical ability and lighting ability at the same time as this process. So that's why a number of the series or sessions are quite different, because they're probably things, I'd been working with Avedon at the time, so that's why it's shot in 4x5 on a white background or whatever. And there were all these things that I was trying to see how and work out what it was I liked about them and how they worked. And so that's what happened.
Right, thank you. And I just was wondering, you didn't have a stylist or someone to help you with his makeup and put the right makeup with the same outfit, with the, how much you were involved with that, and how much he was involved with that? I was wondering, did you have anybody to tell him how to stand, what clothes does he wears, and put the makeup on him, or was it him? Or
no, the part of the package of Leigh was the creation. So these things which he termed, and I think the book which is called looks, they were Leigh's looks. So the looks encompassed everything. It was all his creativity that would manifest itself in the creation that he would then wear, and that would be every detail. And the importance was the detail for his makeup, what it was representing, the implications of it, the historical references, the mixture of fabrics against each other, textures and design, to challenge people's perceptions of what they were used to. And so it was very important to know it was all his work. He did have help from assistants, and Nicola, Bateman, who became his wife towards the end of his life, was primarily the person who worked with him for the longest period of time, and is in charge of his estate now. And they'd spend a lot of time getting ready, and then coming out, and then my part of it would be to take the pictures.
Right. How did you find the overall process of working with Lee and photographing him? Relaxed, stressful? How was it?
No, it wasn't stressful at all. He was a very funny, intelligent man, and amusing, so it was great fun. And he would laugh as much about things as he would take them seriously. So we had an understanding. I was very respectful of what he was doing in Auroville, and thought it was great, and he realised I was doing the same thing, which, it didn't need to be said, he realised, because a lot of his things were then unmade to make up new outfits, and that he was a moving art object, that his legacy couldn't be kept as what they were because they didn't exist. So his legacy of his work, the only legacy that would exist, would be the record of photography. And the sort of pictures that were being taken at the time by Nick Knight for people like ID and Face magazine were often quite about expressionist, fashionistic pictures which had a lot of creative concept in them, like Nick's pictures. Mine were much more classically driven and portrait driven, so there was really, I wasn't changing things with film or anything. That's what he was, that's what you saw. So as a representation or a historic legacy, a record of his work, they were much more able to look at them and see that, what he was doing, especially as a lot of it was shot on large format film.
Did you ever think those images would one day become so famous and influential to cultural icons like certain British designers like Vivienne Westwood, Alexander McQueen, or even some American pop stars?
From the beginning, it was at the time it probably was a period of time in fashion, and it was clear that Lee was very influential and popular, and he helped a lot of designers who had designing blocks on their collections and stuff like that. There was always a huge demand as he went to do shows in Italy or Germany or France or America, or to the Love Ball in New York, Suzanne Barche, that there was always going to be a media interest, because when they were filling their magazines, obviously pictures of him made colourful material to fill their pages with, questioning transgender issues, transsexual issues, fashion issues, design issues, fetishistic issues. So all these things could be used by different magazines as a starting point or a forum for a discussion or for a feature. And then eventually, obviously as that unfolded, there'd always be a demand for pictures. So I knew that that was something which was working for everybody, and they'd always be wanting the pictures to be taken to use in magazines in Japan and stuff like that, which I'd obviously would supply, because that was the whole process we were going through, is to put Lee out there. And then gradually through time, museums started having shows on transgender issues and the same things. They did want these pictures in the shows, which were curated with the catalogue to express an opinion and a viewpoint. So that was all happening while in Lee's life. Obviously when Lee died, it was a question of how much influence did he have as a historic context, would it carry on? And clearly what happened is, it not only carried on, it sort of escalated. So like,